First, we're talking about my book, Taming Your Dragons. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to read the book? You know, because I can read the book and then I can read it in different characters, and you can have the Indian talking when it is the Indian person talking, you know, and you can have like the Irish guy also. We can even, you know, all kinds of different characters. So, but there's no point in me reading the book. You can read the book yourself. So what I'll do is just tell briefly some stories, some other things about the concept of the subtitle, eliminating the hidden causes of conflict, anger, and stress. Okay. So the thing is that if something is hidden, you can't fix it because you don't know it's there. It's hidden. You don't know it's there. So all the work is really to find out what's hidden, what you don't see. And you can't do that if you don't have an open mind. And the problem is that humans don't have open mind. Everyone is always working with preconceived ideas, preconceived thoughts that you think you know what's being said, you think you know what's happening. And then when you hear the first few words of a sentence, you stop listening because you already think you understood the whole sentence. Okay? So here's a board. What am I going to draw? Can you tell me what am I going to draw? It's got to go in your imagination, right? You've got to go and think, what could it be? And when you think, what could it be? You're going to think of things that are already in your mind, not something you've never seen or imagined before, right? Okay, so I'll give you a hint. There, I started. Now, what am I going to draw? You still have no bloody idea. There's no way for you to know. Even if I draw it a little further, there. Now, what am I going to draw? Okay, so you might start to come up with ideas, put things together based on what is acquired information, instead of trying to see what you have never experienced, which is not possible. So that's the problem with our life, in our communication, our interactions, all of our fights. Everything we interact with, we deal with based on identification and imagination. We hear something, we see something, and we are making assumptions that we understand it very well, or we know what the other person is talking about. So to find that, to eliminate conflict, anger, stress, and all these things, we have to eliminate the hidden cause of it, right? Because you know what karma is. Karma, the law of cause and effect. Everything has a reason behind it, a reason behind it, a reason behind it. There's no such thing as an original thought or an original creation that we can deal with in our lives, right? So this is where the problem is. It's the hidden cause of conflicts, which is something you haven't recognized or thought about, is in the subconscious of your mind that you're identifying with when you've all heard the first few words of a sentence. You follow what I mean? Right? How this mind is imagining that it knows what the other person is going to say, but in fact, it could be totally wrong. And when it does that, it creates the wrong image of what is actually being said, and therefore creates often a wrong reaction to what the other person is saying. And therefore, you have a conflict because you're no longer talking about the same thing. So we have to, in this book, we're looking for the hidden causes. So actually, the point of this book is to get your mind to be able to see what is invisible, to see what it cannot see through the normal function of your conscious intellect. So it's to activate psychic, subconscious capacities of intuition. All right. So this is the way to solve our problems, because we know our problem. We have to look at where our problems come from, and our problems come from miscommunication. So we have to learn how to communicate properly. But to learn how to communicate properly, you have to learn how you're communicating wrongly before you can do it properly. So we have to see where we are flawed, where we are broken, where we make our mistakes, in order to be able to correct the wrong direction and wrong function of our mind. Okay? So now we're fighting something that's very mainstream, which is the ideas that, like, for example, this one: accept praise. You're awesome. You're wonderful. You're fantastic. Take credit. I made some notes about this. I'm going to write it up eventually, but I'll read off my notes from this. Because we're being misled by the New Agey movement, by a lot of things they're telling us. So it gets our mind to function, because the great authors and great psychologists say this is the way to be happy and this is the way to eliminate conflicts. But in every good lie, there's always a little bit of truth. So a lot of the New Age concepts are actually misleading people into maintaining an inner conflict and external conflicts and problems. But they say they're going to help you, but they're actually there to mislead you. And the reason is, it's good business. If I am a psychologist or a counselor, it's good business to make sure my client stays sick, because then I have a constant client. But if I fix you, then you go away, I lose business. So a lot of the teachings out there are very misleading. They sound good, but in fact, they are going to mislead a person, so they never actually really repair the problem so that they can keep their client base, basically. All right. So this is what my work is about, is going for the hidden causes and refuting with good examples a lot of the commonly accepted concepts of how to be happy and let's say deal with anger, which we're not dealing with anger. We're trying to eliminate the hidden causes of anger. Very different. So this way you don't get angry to begin with. All right. So just as the introduction, I'm saying you've got to accept that our work is to look in a way negatively at ourself. But now comes the word ourself. All right. So when you talk about yourself, that's what you think yourself. What do you think is yourself? When you say myself, I want to know myself. What do you think, Nabeed? What is the self you're talking about? Oops, oops, oops. I don't hear you well. Okay. All right. Try again.
Do you mean like myself? I should tell like how do I think myself? Like I think I think myself like more of like you know um, yeah, that more focused on what I'm doing in my work especially and at home. But I don't know how to describe that. What exactly you're looking for to answer this
No,
question?
but yourself, like they say, find yourself, or I've got to be my true self, this sort of thing. So you're saying you would describe yourself by your work, or
Yeah.
what is this self?
For example, in my case, I think I'm still not able to reached to the level of target that I could say that this is what I wanted in my life. But yes, I'm approaching toward this thing in my professional career in such ways, you know. So yeah, so in my case, I want in the end of the day, like after a couple of years from down the road, I want to establish a successful IT business. You know, I
No,
feel.
but no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wait. What I mean is when I say yourself, because like spiritual people would say that's my soul, my true self, you know, my soul or my spirit. This is what I mean. What is the true self? Is it your image, your profession, uh, you know, this sort of thing? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Profession is the true for myself. Yes. Profession.
yeah,
Okay.
okay, so the my point is that and I'm sorry because it's really hard to hear what you're saying because of the microphone. So I only get very couple of words, so it's hard to hear clearly. So I'm just making a little drawing. Okay. Now, when people talk about, where is that showing the picture? Okay. When people talking about their self, I know myself, who am I? You're never actually talking about the spark, the real soul of your being, your consciousness, that thing that gives your body life, whether you want to call it your soul or your life force or your spark of divine light or the bit of God within you, or just simply that energy that gives you life. When you talk about yourself, it's always about your personality. Some people say, New Agey people love the saying, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. All right. Or people talk about themselves as a spiritual being or as a consciousness or in anything beyond simply, I am a material animal body with an ego personality. All right. So when we talk about ourself, it's I, the ego personality, that is doing the talking. So when you say, I reincarnate, I go to heaven, I am a spiritual being living forever, all of these are lies. All of it is lies. Why is it a lie? Because I, who is talking, is the ego personality that lives in this body, and both of those things die when the body dies. All right. So what we're trying to get to, the like for example, the hidden cause, is that we are always identifying our limited human ego as if it is a spiritual, infinite, wise, spiritual being. And we think much more of ourselves. We think, when I say I, that I am this great, infinite spiritual being, but in fact, I am just this human ego personality. So we have to right away break the lies and accept that I am just this mind, the personality, and this body. And anytime I talk about myself, that's all I am. Okay? So now, one of the concepts is you have to love yourself. Right? Today, I'm just giving you like the background of the attitude to work with the material in the book or our courses. Okay? So one of the lies is you have to love yourself. Love yourself. Now, if myself is my personality and my, let's say, my body, all right? So we have 3 layers. This is in the layers of being course. Will come next. There's the spark, which is truly the spiritual essence. Then there's the personality and the body. All right? So if I say I must love myself, I am the ego personality talking about loving my body and my personality, my ego. As I love them even more, I become more attached to my individuality as a human being. The concept of love yourself should be loving that divine spark, the energy, the spirit that animates this personality. But because we are not actually that evolved, when we say love yourself, you are loving the ego personality in the body, which you subconsciously know are really very defective. The body has its tremendous weaknesses and its desires and its limitations. If you look at the actual physical functions of the body, can be a little bit disgusting. You know, like Buddha said, look objectively at yourself and look at this woman that you will give anything to have sex with. But what is she going to be in 80 years? What are you going to be in 80 years? What are you going to be when you're dead? This just, you know, bones and skin. It's disgusting. But yet we love it and we're so attached to it. So the more we focus on love yourself, the more you're attached to your body and your ego personality. And when you are very attached to something, you want to defend it, you want to protect it. So the more you work on loving yourself when it is from the view of the ego personality, the more you are fearing any kind of attack against your body or your personality. And the more fear you have, the quicker you will respond in a defensive manner to anything you perceive as an attack. Does this make sense so far? Right? Okay. So I say we need to hate ourselves. Now, you cannot hate yourself without becoming depressed unless you are constantly, really deeply understanding that I am not this body or this personality. All right? And that every time I say I'm actually identifying with the body and personality. Okay? So this is what's important, to not really work on building up your ego, building up, I love myself, I'm fantastic, I'm wonderful. Because the more you do that, the more sensitive and delicate you come to any perceived attack. So the hidden cause of a lot of conflict and anger is that you want to love what you subconsciously know is temporary, because you're going to die, and filled with flaws, which is our personality and our limited body. So this is creating inner conflict, which creates stress. I'm trying to love something that really, I'm not that great a person, or I have many flaws, or I'm evil, or I'm stealing, or I'm selfish, or whatever it is. So we have to go beyond trying to accept and love and treasure what we subconsciously know is flawed, and separate in our mind the awareness that I am the spiritual energy essence that animates this body and personality. I am not this human being. I am not this person. So I look objectively at this human and this person as a separate being. So then I am not as concerned with what anybody thinks or says about this human personality. You see, when I separate myself from my human self, right? Like if right now, do you know how many people are dying in the world? A lot of people are dying in the world right now, at this very second. Doesn't affect you in the least because they're not part of your family. But when one of your family members dies, boy, do you suffer. So it's the same way. When you identify and love your body and love your personality and love your desires so much, anything that happens to it, you get severely affected and you will then defend it. So we have to see that the hidden cause of our trouble is actually that we're trying to love our flawed human personality. And then, of course, we never change it because we love it so much. And it's wonderful and it's awesome and it's great. Okay? So this is where the main sort of mantra is all day. I am not this person. I am an energy, giving it animation, giving it life, but I am not this person. This body, this person is very flawed. I don't like it. It's got problems. I would like to fix it. I would like to make it better, but it is a project, just like building something, writing code, making a program, building a table, whatever it is. It is something I am building and it is not good enough. But that is not me. So to say it is not good enough is okay, won't depress me because it's not me. All right, so this is a very difficult concept because you're so attached to your humanity. But when you come to this separation, you will be free of all the negative emotions. All right? So these are some things like this new agey concept, love yourself, how it works against you. Now, I'll give you in one, because I had to do this for one student who was being programmed with this idea, and it's very counterproductive. So I've made 3 different ways to look at this concept that will give you strength. Take this as an example that you can apply to everything in your life. By the way, okay, Nabi, there's a concept we have called being like a cloud. You can watch that little video on, maybe you'll give him the link or you can find it. What we want is to be like a cloud, which means that you are free from any attacks. Like a jet can fly through a cloud, but the cloud doesn't get damaged. But yet the cloud is real in itself. It can rain, it can shade the sun, it can decorate the sky. It cannot be moved or changed or destroyed or created. It's completely free. Okay? So that's just something about being like a cloud. Now I'm going to just go through these little notes. All right. So there's this thing, accept praise. You're great. Own it. You did it. You know, you're a self-made man. You're a self-made woman. You're awesome. You're fantastic. You know, all these thoughts out there, self-praise, very common, right? Now, what all that does is building the ego. And as we said, the bigger your ego is, the more of a rock you are, which has a chance of colliding with another rock and getting smashed. What we want is to become a cloud so that we cannot have any pain when there is a conflict. A cloud doesn't get hurt when a jet flies through it. But when the jet hits a mountain, both the jet is destroyed and the mountain gets some damage. So we don't want to be a rock. We want to be a cloud so that when there's a conflict, nothing happens. The more you build your ego with this self-praise, the more you become like a rock. Now there's our way is an alternate way to become completely strong, powerful, self-confident, and so on. So we get to the same end, which is this feeling of great strength, but in the strength of a cloud, not the strength of a mountain. All right, so this is the praise. Accept the praise, own it, and all of this. I'm not saying have false humility and say, no, 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 I'm not good enough, I'm not that great. That's not what I'm saying either. Like with the drawing, when I said, what's on the board, where there was nothing on the board, you don't know what I want to draw. So by the same token, this course, you don't know where I'm going to lead you in the end. So just stay with an open mind as I go through each part, okay? So the first flaw with this idea of you're awesome, you're great, accept praise, is everything has always happened because of somebody else. You never did it on your own. You may have participated a bit, but everything has happened because of somebody else. Can you think of anything anybody ever did, as long as humans have walked the earth, that that person did entirely on their own? Like, let's start with breathing. You don't even breathe on your own. You're only breathing because the trees are exhaling oxygen. There is nothing we do on our own. Everything has happened because somebody else or something else has made it happen. So when you forget about the source who made something happen, your ego gets bigger, and then there's more of me, me, me. You become more like a rock, more like a mountain. And if you've noticed, clouds, when two clouds, if you have like two puffy clouds and they go together, they merge, all of a sudden you only see one cloud. You don't see where's the delineation between what was two individual clouds. Clouds can merge and become one, but that doesn't happen with rocks. Rocks and mountains don't merge, all right? So the more you take credit and the less you are always remembering that everything has come from someone else, you're building your ego individuality, more me, 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 which is you're becoming more like a rock, and therefore creating more separation. Because the more you take credit, the more, or want to take credit, the more you have fear of somebody else taking that credit away from you. And the more fear you have, the more conflict you will have, because you have something more precious to defend. So you become more fearful and more stressed at losing that image of being the great one. A lot of very famous people committed suicide, right? They're so stressed. They're scared of losing their career, losing their fame, losing their position. Rich people, always scared of losing their money. Poor people too, I guess. But anyway, so when you really want to take credit for things, you are being totally counterproductive. You're not making yourself stronger. You're making yourself weaker by building up more fear and more ego that needs protection and more isolation. Okay? So let me sidestep a little bit to what is the main cause of human suffering. The main cause of all human suffering is the feeling of abandonment, right? As soon as we're born, we're abandoned by God. We've left the spiritual realm, we're in the human realm. Whatever your religion is, doesn't matter about religion, doesn't matter about spiritual beliefs, unless you're total atheist or something like that. But take it as a concept. Now, when you're born, you're a little baby, and everybody, I think, knows the scientific studies that babies left in isolation die, and they don't grow up nearly as healthy or as balanced as babies who got a lot of attention, right? So when you're a little baby and you're left crying alone and nobody is there, you feel abandoned. When your parents or some friends don't keep their promise when you're a little kid, you feel abandoned. And what's the greatest human need? Companionship. We need companionship. So the greatest pain is because we feel abandoned. We feel alone because we need the companionship. We need to be joined to someone. Religions grow, schools, groups, gangs, violent gangs, cults. Everything grows because we need to feel part of something. It's a human nature. So the feeling of abandonment is the great fear and pain because of the need of companionship and acceptance. So the more you take credit and say, I am awesome, I am great, the more you build the ego, the more isolated you are becoming, because you need to protect your stuff and your image. And therefore, you are counterproductive to the greatest fear and pain and the need of a human being, which is unity, companionship. So that's why we need to be a cloud, because clouds merge, rocks don't. So if we look at Americans, sorry, Chris, but you know, Americans are all about fear of losing their stuff, because everything's about how much money you've got there, right? But everywhere we go, people are worried about losing their stuff. One of the biggest businesses in the world, the biggest profits in the world, and you can find out which those companies are, is insurance companies, because they've got their names on the biggest buildings in every city. Banks, insurance companies. Think about, what is insurance? Insurance is about paying money every month to protect your stuff. Fear of losing what you have. So human being needs so desperately to protect what they have. When you have a big ego, you need to protect it. All conflicts are a threat against your ego. All right. So that's the first thing. Always remember, everything happened because of someone else. And the exercise for this first step is, and you can do this all day, every day, with everything, anything. I mean, right now you're sitting in the room. Where did the chairs come from? Where did the tables come from? Where did that smartphone come from? Who was involved in the chain of events of bringing that thing into your hands right now? Where did the air come from that you are breathing? Where did the glass of water come from that you are drinking? All the processes right back to the evaporation of the ocean, if you want to think about the water. And in that process, from where the ocean evaporated to cause a cloud, which rained in the mountains, which caused water to accumulate and form into a lake, which the lake was built by a dam by the city council to create a water reservoir. Then the processes of purification of that water, transportation of that water, the pipes, the engineering to get the water from the lake into your house, then the plumbing in your house, then the taps that are made by the company and that poor little guy in China who's working in the factory making the taps that you're going to open to get that glass of water. Everything has such a huge chain of events, and you have to be thinking about that chain of events for everything, so that you always remember, you didn't do it. It is not you. You just happen to be one itsy bitsy teeny weeny link in a chain for everything. Okay? So be careful when you're taking all this credit. All right. Because that is so counterproductive, because it just builds the ego. Okay. Any question about that? Is that okay? Cool. All righty. Yeah? No? Okay. Second point. Success in business comes from humility, which is to be grateful to the client for giving you the opportunity to make money. Now, you're the client, you're buying a house, you've got two real estate brokers to choose. One is severely arrogant and egoistic. The other one is polite and humble and respectful. Which one are you going to choose to work with? It's obvious, right? Okay. Assuming they both can provide the same service and the same products, which in many cases in life, there's always someone who can do what you do. So you don't earn the money. Now, our most financially successful student became successful because he's a freelancer. And I told him, when you do a job, you earn the money. Of course, I did the job, right? Isn't that normal? Anybody who does work, they expect to be paid because I did the job. So give me my money. Here's the bill. Give me my money. I said, no, you can't expect to be paid. You don't deserve it. In fact, you should be grateful to the client for giving you the opportunity to make money. So you have to approach the job, the client, your business with gratitude that you had the opportunity to make money because the client exists. If there was no client, then you wouldn't make any money, right? So you cannot take credit for your success. You cannot take credit for earning the money you made. The credit goes to the client. The credit goes to the person who wanted what you could offer. Then, of course, credit goes to the people who taught you to do what you did, or credit goes to the people who provided the product that you're selling, right? Remembering that it's the where does the real credit belong keeps you humble, keeps you appreciative, keeps you respectful. And that, you probably have discovered, is extremely rare in our world to have those qualities. And so if you possess those qualities, your business will succeed much more. You'll be far more desirable to work with, right? So always remember, no, you're not awesome. You're not that great. You're not the one who did it all. It credit belongs to somebody else. All right. Third point, the spiritual point of view. From the spiritual point of view of life, our goal, as all the religious and spiritual teachings tell us, whichever one you want to go, whether it's the Sufi and Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or anything, the goal is to make nothing of yourself, to destroy your ego. That's what spirituality is about. Get rid of your ego, because your ego separates you from other people and from spiritual reality, from God, whatever you want to believe in. Okay? So building up the ego on a false basis is separating you from the reality of being a soul instead of a human. But every time you're saying, I did it, I'm awesome, I'm great, then you're building up the ego. The more the ego, the less conscious that you're a spiritual being. So therefore, the more limited you are spiritually. Okay? It is false to say that you are actually really responsible for anything. Because as we said, everything comes from somewhere else. And it's totally contrary to spiritual development, which means totally contrary to becoming like a cloud, to taking credit. Now, let's just define spiritual. Spiritual isn't religious. In our school, we don't want any religions, because religions separate people. Because if you say this is a Christian school, well, then Muslims and Jews wouldn't go, right? If it's a Buddhist school, Christians won't go because they idol worship or something like that. So we don't want to have any religions involved, because that separates people if they happen to have that kind of attitude. So, but spiritually speaking, we're talking about being completely beyond the limitations of the human life. It's an acceptance that, yes, there is something more, whatever you want to believe in. All right? Without it being religious. So we all want to develop spiritually. Why? Because spiritually is contrary to humanly. Spiritual is the opposite of material. We want to go beyond the material limitations. We want to go beyond our human ego flaws. So that's what we call spiritual. Okay. So spiritually, we need to make nothing of ourselves, become like a cloud. So even from the spiritual perspective. Now, the next stage where this goes a little deeper, from the spiritual perspective, the spiritual side is this energy that keeps us alive. Like when we die, the life force leaves our body. What is this life force? It's our spiritual essence. Right? Why are we separated from that? Why are we only attached to our humanity? Because that's what we focus on, our humanity. Because we take credit for things. We think we did it. But when we get in the habit of always remembering and recognizing that every single thing we're involved with has somebody else or many people or many things that are responsible for it to give credit to, and that becomes your constant habitual way of thinking and instantly reacting, your mind also develops the automatic realization that my very life depends on something beyond the material realm. And that is the way to constantly have God in your mind or your spiritual essence in your mind, because you get into the habitual pattern of remembering that everything depends on something else. All right. So when we forget that the only reason our body is alive is because of the spark, right? What we call the spark in the layers of being, the spark of universal energy, when we forget that our body and our existence is 100% dependent on that spark, that's when we feel abandoned. Because you forget about your life force. You forget about the source of your existence. So, in fact, we are not really abandoned because you're still alive. Energy is still flowing in. But you feel abandoned because you forget about this life force, because you are more geared on taking credit as if your personality and body, is actually responsible for everything you've done. So when we get in the habit of always realizing responsibility comes to someone else, we eventually, that sinks in, and our habit is my very life at every moment is responsible for something greater. That makes a stronger connection to the spiritual energy, which you could call intuition. And you are now more connected to this universal energy, God, whatever you want to call it. And the feeling of abandonment diminishes as the feeling of connection increases. And the less you feel abandoned, the less fear you have in life in general. And the less fear you have, the less feeling of attack and the less conflicts you have. Okay? So, is that clear? What? Oh, you have a question. Oh, she's saying talk slower. I get excited. I talk too quickly. All right. So, does that, okay, does that make sense?
Okay, one question here.
Wait, 1 second. Okay, all right. Yeah.
When you say that everything is happened because of somebody else, so in this case, there are a lot of things that we do actually every day that makes us our day, you know, uh, make us happy or make us angry. So these are sometimes our own decisions that they actually counts up. Of course, there is some background for it. It's always for a decision. But how could you say that always everything is happening because of somebody else? That's a little bit, a tricky subject.
Yeah. That's why I say we always have to look for the cause of every feeling or everything we've done. And it takes time to change the way your mind works. All right. So this could take months of practice before you actually get your mind to think automatically in this way. All right. Because you can never take, this is contrary to the ethics, which is take 100% responsibility for everything in your life, but it doesn't actually contradict it. You take responsibility for your feelings, your thoughts, your actions, responsibility, but still remembering that everything has somebody else or many people involved. It's not entirely you. You didn't do it on your own. All right. Even your reaction. My mother's, okay. So, I mean, I can say in our history, probably how, like back then in the 40s or the 30s, 1930s, the British felt about Indians and Pakistanis, right? They looked down on them. So we learn prejudice from previous generations. And then you're born and raised to have a prejudice against another person or culture. So when you take offense at a prejudiced statement, you feel it. Yeah, it's in you. But it's still because somebody else put that feeling and attitude into you. Right? Everything has come from somebody else. Everything has come from somewhere else. And it's that concept that we're trying to get into our mind so that we are never saying, I am awesome. I am great. I did it all. I did it. Good job. But I don't deserve 100% credit. And it's just the way to get the mind functioning automatically that way. And we do that by always looking for the chain of events in every situation. So this is an alteration of how your mind will automatically function. Does that make more sense? All right.
Yeah. But in this case, like, I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you one example. I recently bought one vehicle. Okay, I'm just giving an example, just trying to map onto you. Now, I made a wrong decision with an expensive car. Okay, yes, I made that wrong decision. Somebody suggested that I should buy this car, and I bought it. And when I bought it, I found there is a problem in it. So I'll lose money. But what I'm saying is that in this particular case, yes, somebody referred to me, but the fault, should I blame the other guy that he referred to me for something, or what should be the solution? Because if you are in a situation, you have to be responsible. One have to be responsible. Like it's not his decision; it's my decision. I took that decision that I'm gonna invest on it and I'm gonna do this thing. So now, if it's wrong, it's me who make the decision. You're right that somebody suggested me to buy that out. But now, should I? What do you suggest? Now, should I go back? Because, as you said, it's something happened because of someone else. Yes, somebody suggested me to buy that one. But should I go back to that guy and blame him for something that he did something to me, or what's the solution then to get out of that situation?
All right. That's in a negative situation, a negative result. I'm talking, this one is mainly about the positive things where we try to take credit for things. What do we have? Oh, he showed up. Okay, hello. This particular talk is about when we're taking credit for things, right? You're talking about a negative situation. That's a whole different topic. That's a whole different discussion. This topic is it working still, or is there a problem?
No, it's okay. It's okay. There was just
okay. All right. This particular. Sorry.
You can see us. We have two participants.
Yeah. 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 They're on the side, but I know them already.
Do you want them to come on this side?
Yeah. You want to go on that side? Other two persons? Go on, Andy. So I can see you guys. Yeah.
A little bit better. I think you can see us all.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, they're the old student. What you're talking about is a negative situation. That's a different topic. Today, I'm focusing on just where we take credit for things. I'm trying now only to destroy the ego rather than to deal with problem situations. Okay? So that's where, you just got to adjust now with what you're saying and how you're taking this. I just want to put you down for taking credit for things. I want to destroy that idea. I'm trying not to let the ego be built, because the thing is that when you build your ego by saying, I'm great, take credit for these things, own these things, you're also building an ego that will get more angry when mistakes are made. So when we no longer build our ego by thinking I'm wonderful and awesome, you also will not make as many mistakes and be easily influenced. Because how do you get influenced by someone else to make a wrong decision? Is because you want to feel liked. If I'm trying to convince you to do something, you will do it because you want me to like you. You want to feel part of me. You want to be friends. And yeah, we think the same. I agree with you. You want to be liked. That's the ego. And that ego is built the more you take credit for things and think you're wonderful and awesome. So as I stop building that ego, then there's less of me that needs to comply with other people's influences, because there's less of me that needs to be liked. I become more emotionally independent. So in a way, this helps resolve or prevent making mistakes. But like I say, this talk is really focusing about no longer building that false ego with all this, hype, wonderful talk. Okay. So the more we get into this habit of always acknowledging the source of our successes, not the cause of our problems. That's, like I say, different topic. But the source of our successes, the more our mind becomes open to constantly realizing our connection to other people. And as we get more connected to other people, we have a greater sense of companionship and less feeling of abandonment. And that gives a greater sense of comfort in life in general. All right. So is Anne still here or gone away?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah, you are. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So let's see. It's about the end of this by constant memory. Okay. So by constantly remembering that we have done nothing on our own and that we have only been made to do everything we do. We call this the law of accident, which means we're actually just reactive beings. We react to things, but the more, I'll explain that in a minute. So the more we have been only made to do everything, then we grow in humility rather than arrogance. And the great human dragon is really arrogance, is ego and arrogance. So the law of accident is that everything happens to you by accident. Like even you're in IT, whatever your profession is, it's an accident that you encountered that profession. You see, if you grew up in a little Pacific island, they have no internet, but the whole world has great internet and computers, you wouldn't be an IT guy because you didn't know it exists. So the accident is you were never exposed to IT. But then you go to wherever there's a lot of IT business and you get exposed to it. Okay, that sounds good. I'll do that. So it's an accident. It's just what happened that you were exposed to, which triggered you to make a decision. So it's up to destiny what events will happen, which will trigger in you thoughts to take action or not take action. So that's what we have to remember, is that everything is coming from somebody else, somewhere else. And you are only this ever so tiny part in an infinitely long chain of events. So we do not build up that ego. So my work is basically about, is like this, is to refute the new agey concepts, the self-hype, self-aggrandissement, self-building up, because all of that is totally counterproductive. All of that makes you at rock, and that is the hidden cause. And the more you try to build your ego and thinking, I'm great, I'm wonderful, that is going to be the cause of your conflict, anger, and stress. Because that's what you're trying to protect. And that is what gets attacked, right? So why is traveling is good? Let's say you're a famous person, very famous actor, everybody knows you. You can't do anything. You can't go to the movies. You can't go to dinner. You can't take a walk in the street. There's always somebody who's going to be looking at you. The paparazzi's taking pictures, following you around, right? Where can you relax? When you go somewhere that nobody knows you. When you're invisible, when you're anonymous. Thank God I can relax. I can pick my nose in public. I can do anything I want. Nobody's going to make a big deal about it. So it's the same thing. The more you build your ego, the less you can relax. More stress, more fear. When we have no ego, completely free. Nothing to worry about. So here I gave you 3 good reasons why taking credit for things, feeling you're great, feeling you're awesome is very counterproductive. And to show you that this is the hidden cause of your conflicts. All right. So counter to this is, yes, you did a good job. Okay. But remember always, you're just a small part in it. You're a very small part in your success. Okay. So that's a very big lesson. I think if we really want to do the course on the book, you've got to read the book and then ask questions about it. And then do the exercises in the book and ask questions about the exercises. Yeah. Rather than me just read the book. I think that's going to be the best way to go through the course. So for now then, okay, any other questions or something about this? That does it make sense? Can you dispute what I've said? Silence.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's perfect. Everything you've said. It makes sense.
Don't hear you. You, I could hear. What? Okay, say it again.
I just said it makes a lot of sense, David. It's perfect.
Okay. All right. So you can't dispute it. All right.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Basically, anything you hear that is popular, all the new agey sayings, you're awesome, you're great, take credit, you're amazing, anything that says find yourself, all of it has to be taken as a lie that you need to question and say to yourself, how does this affect me? And when I ask myself, how does it affect me? Who is the me that is asking the question? Is that me, the ego with the body? Is it me, the spiritual side of me? And anyone who says it's the spiritual part of me, my soul, they're lying to themselves, because you're not actually in touch with your soul. You're 100% your ego personality and your body. Anyone who denies that, walk away from, because they're lying to themselves or they're lying to you. Because if it was true, they'd be levitating. they wouldn't have problems in their life, at least. They'd be perfectly balanced and free. So everything is from ego personality. And you have to then rethink the question and say, from the point of view of my ego personality and my body, with all the pooping and vomiting and farting and burping, am I really so beautiful and awesome? With the age process, as I'm going to get older and wrinkly and not so flexible and energetic, and my mind starts to decay and get stupider and slower as I get older, am I really so awesome? Am I something I should be so attached to? And we're trying to disassociate ourselves from loving our humanity, because the more we love it, the more attached we become to it. And the more attached we are to our human individuality, the more we fear it being attacked. And because of the flawed personality with all its defects, we misinterpret so many things that are being said as if they are attacks, when they could be neutral or even a compliment. How many times have you felt attacked, or somebody has felt attacked by something you said, when in fact it was a compliment and it was totally misinterpreted? So when you see the mistakes you make, how can you love this flawed, self-destructive creature? And if I love it, I want to keep it. So when I say eliminating the hidden causes, a lot of those hidden causes are the current new agey pop psychology, hippie love stuff that's being programmed into people. Because that's all there to keep you in your ego personality. And the reason is it's good economies. It's good economics. As long as you're flawed, you're good for business. You're a constant customer, right? That's why I charge so much money for my course. Do it for the big money, right? So we're not here for the business. All right.
David,
So, yeah.
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So like most engagements with other people, most conversations with other people, we're speaking from the ego personality. So what should we do? Like, because obviously this is only entertaining our egos and building that up as we're speaking from it and believing that I this and I that. So is it better not to speak, or is it okay to speak? Is it possible to speak if we're conscious of it from the soul, from the spiritual, without the ego personality? Is that possible?
You said two things show you're not paying too much attention here. You said most of our things. I told you everything is. And then you said speak from our soul. And I told you you can't. You're so far detached from your soul, there's no way to do that. All you can do is be from your human personality. And just remember, it's always flawed. The things I said to do is always remembering things came from somewhere else. The work is not a weekend workshop where you get changed so quickly. Doing the exercises that I've given you here today takes years in a very, very slow process to have the mind constantly. It's not about how to talk to people, how to communicate, and all of this. It's about changing the way your mind works so that you are developing humility, in the humility that you are nothing and that everything comes from somebody else. And as you develop humility, you become more, less arrogant, and you become a better person, and then you have less trouble because you have reduced your ego. That's what it is. All right? So you do everything that you do in a normal life, except you're always remembering that this is not me alone, at all me. I am just flawed and I am just lucky, and everything comes from somebody else. And that's it. That's what we're trying to do. And that makes subtle changes to your mind over time, so that your mind develops an awareness of its, of the source of the life of your being. That you know, it develops or it breaks apart the identification that I am David and I am this body, so that I'm no longer attached to it. The point is, we're trying to become detached. The more attached you are to yourself, the more you're going to take everything personally and have fights. Right? So there's nothing here about how to deal with other people. This is not at all. This has nothing to do with how you deal with other people. This is not about how to talk, how to behave. It's only about what is the process going on in your own mind, which is, I am nothing. I am just lucky. I am here. I do what's in front of me. And the credit is truly always to somebody else for giving me the opportunity, for providing the skills, for putting me in this situation, for putting me in this place. Thanks to Bill Gates for, you know, computers so popular, or thanks to the aliens for bringing us microchips, whatever you want to believe, you know? Because some people believe that aliens came to Earth in the 1940s and crashed, and they reverse engineered their spaceship, and that's where they invented the microchip. So, you know, you can thank the whole computer industry for the alien ship that had a bad pilot and he crashed. You know, whatever you want to believe. But that's all this is about. Because the hidden cause is you trying to take credit for things. You trying to build your ego. And that's what we're trying to eliminate, right? Eliminate the ego. So question everything before you believe it. All right, what else?
I want to ask something. I will come a bit closer.
Wait. That's so soft. Try again.
Can you hear me from here?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering how you then still find the balance between, you know, if you consider yourself as like you're flawed and you're no good, but you say like you still can love the spark, but you actually don't understand what the spark is. You don't know what it is. You're not even close to understanding it. So I guess that's why we also hold on to that humanity, because that at least is something that we see, that we know, that we understand or think we understand. So how do you then not get depressed, because there's actually nothing to love about yourself at all anymore then?
Okay. We could say faith, but we do it scientifically. All right. So you have to begin with knowing you're not this human being. And you say, well, yeah, but I'm not in touch with the spark. How am I going to believe I am? And you use scientific proofs that are good analogies, like, you know that oxygen is real because you're breathing, but yet you can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't hold it. You can't contain it. But it's there. It's real, but you can't touch it. So by virtue of you being alive, you know that there is some energy that's keeping you alive, because when a person dies of natural causes, you know, they're there and then they died. And there's no particular reason. You know, they didn't have a heart attack. They didn't get shot in the head. They just died. All right. So there's a life force, an energy that left them. So By scientific observation, we say there must be something that is keeping my body alive. There must be an original source of all things in existence. Doesn't have to be religious, can be scientific, could be religious, as you want. But by objective observation, you say, well, there has to be a source. And that deepening of that belief grows by the process of saying every success I have following the chain of events of what led me to this opportunity, to this success. Who was involved? Who gave me the chance? How nice when I drove to the office, nobody else drove into my car and caused an accident, so I was late for work. All the chain of events. So this is a very slow transformation of the way your mind will habitually think. So for now, you have to take the attitude that there's got to be something that is keeping this body alive. Well, for example, if there is no reason to know something, you wouldn't ask a question. And we all want to know, humans generally want to know, where did I come from and where am I going? Why am I here? Right? Humans have always asked this question. So what is asking this question? If I truly was just this human body and ego, I wouldn't actually say, what's the point of life? I'd be very content with have fun until I die. So you see, this work is not for everybody, because there are a lot of people who just say, I'm born, I live, I die, and that's it. Have fun till I die. But if you are saying, what's the point of life? Where did I come from? Where am I going? Where did all of this come from? What's the point of life? Any question that is saying there's no meaning, where's the meaning in life? Something like that. You say, well, where is this question coming from? Because the body wouldn't care. It's just here to have fun. So that tells me there's got to be something more than just my humanity. And then the best question is, why do I give a shit about anybody else? Why do I care about becoming a better person? Why do I get angry and have fights with people, and I can see in my own mind, what am I fighting about? Where are these inner conflicts coming from? Why do I want to stop fighting? And the better question is, why do I fight at all? So you see, all these questions cannot be properly answered other than by saying, well, there's something about me that I don't know. That's got to be there. So, and how do I get there? Well, this is the process I'm giving you. In these exercises, it changes your mind and opens up faculties that make it possible to begin to understand what that invisible thing is. All right? So it requires faith. Faith is built through objective scientific observation. And that is built through exercise, through time, repetition. Or you can just give up hope and go collect the dole and live on a beach. You could do that. It doesn't want to be more humble. Being more humble is the way to get there. Yeah. Yeah, because it's painful. It's difficult. It's painful. Some people don't have a soul. They don't have that in them. They're just animal. And other people just bury it or ignore it. You know, and these people go postal. You know, this American expression, going postal, right? Where somebody, they're a nice guy. My friend actually in Denver, in Colorado, he said he had a friend and they had a 13-year-old boy. He's known the boy for his whole life since he's born. And he said, this boy was such a quiet, polite, respectful boy. He never spoke up. He never said anything. He was always just sitting there quietly. It was great. And one day when he was 13 years old, he took a machine gun and shot a bunch of people at a bus stop. So a lot of people just suppress it and keep it inside until they explode. So yeah, you don't know. Everybody is different. All right. But you only should be concerned with yourself. Right. So you see, you watch that, you say, I want to be humble, or the soul wants to be humble. No, 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 no. Being humble is just a vehicle. All right. And what is it to be humble? Is to not be arrogant. So you don't want to be humble. You just do not want to be arrogant. You do not want to have the ego. Like Buddha, I like Buddha's way, because Buddha said, don't do anything. Just stop doing what's bad for you. All right, that's our way. We're actually not trying to do something. We're just trying to stop doing what is harmful to ourselves. And the cause of all trouble is the ego. So we want to stop doing things that build our ego. Because that's where all the pain is. Because the ego is the individual. It separates us. Our bodies, another way to separate ourselves, you know, with people who are prejudiced. Then you have color, race, religion, all of this to separate people. And then each religion and race and culture has their own idiosyncrasies. And that's because of your ego, right? It doesn't matter what body you're born into, it matters where you're raised. So if you've got your body, your skin color and all that, and your race, then you've got the ego personality, depending on what family and country you grow up in, to have your prejudices and your idiosyncrasies. And so all of these individualities that make you a human are things we must hate, because that's what causes separation, conflicts, fights, all the trouble. So this diversity of humanity is the cause of all our troubles. And when people love diversity, it depends how you use the diversity. But you see how diversity in a way has caused all our wars. So we need to look objectively and see the bad in everything so that we can work against the bad. But humans like happy, happy, happy stuff. So they only want to look at the good. And if we look at our world, it's a mess. It isn't a good world. It's a mess. And that's because everyone wants to look at the good, the happy, happy. So our work is to look at the bad, the negative, the problems. And so we know what to eliminate, because that's the hidden cause of the trouble. So you say that how to stay positive with it all. If you believe, if this makes sense to you, that to look for the cancer so that I can find the problem and cut it out, as painful as the operation and procedure will be, that will give me a healthy life. Then I'm willing to go through the operation. So this is how we have the strength to endure the difficulty of facing the painful process of examining our negative self-destructive behavior by believing through our own observations that this actually makes sense to me. I can see how trying to be happy is a band-aid over an open wound that continues to get infected underneath the band-aid, versus an operation. Like the one guy I know of, he had a gangrene in one toe. He refused to have the toe cut off. It spread to his foot. He refused to have the foot cut off. It spread, and eventually it got to his entire leg. And he had to cut the whole leg off, because then it would go into his internal system and he would die. So if you think that your way of living is actually, you know, the happy thing is working and you're actually improving, you stay with it. But if you can say, you know, there is something wrong with my life, let me try a new direction. Okay, I'm providing you a different direction. I'm asking you to do it for sincerely, not just imagine you're doing it like most students do. They say, I'm doing it, when they haven't done anything. But to sincerely follow it devotedly for a couple of years, and then look back and see, yeah, it makes sense. I see changes. Then that gives you the faith. So, and the problem is, or the answer to your question, how do you have the faith in it, is, well, you have to try it first until you see the proof of it. And you can also observe people who are new agey and happy and say, do I really want to be like that person? Have they really changed that much? Do they really still have a lot of problems? Is that path working? Okay. So it's hard because it's a leap of faith. But yeah, we're looking for the negatives. Oh, sorry. Okay. And that's right. The other supporting gets you going is the more you really deepen the realization, when I say I am that ego personality. And I've got to remember, I am not. Okay? When a normal human says I, anytime you refer to I, okay, you're either talking about I, the body, or I, the personality. When you say I, okay? When I say I, sometimes I know that, but I got to remember, I really am the spark. So when I say my body sucks, my personality is pathetic, I have to remember, I am not the body and personality. I am the spark. But I won't realize I am the spark until I go through the process of remembering I am not the body or the personality. So you've just got to keep reminding yourself, what am I? Who am I really? Who am I really? I am terrible. Yes, but which I is it? Which fragment is that I that is terrible? Can I say my body is an amazing work of perfection? That's ridiculous. Look how flawed it is. Look how delicate it is. Look how defective it is. Not you personally, of course. Everybody, right? This is amazingly defective design. Can I say my personality is awesome? No way. So it's just that constant reminder, what keeps my body alive? There's got to be something else. And when I say I, which I is speaking and which I is it talking about? Am I this body? Am I this person? Am I this religion? Am I this culture? Am I a block of wood? Am I as stupid as a dog? What am I? Which I am I? And when you see all the different I's you are, right? All the different fragments, then you can, without pain and suffering, look negatively on that I, because you know that your I cannot see itself. You can never see your own I. You can only see a reflection of it. You can see a picture of it, but you cannot see your own eyeball, your own eyeball. You cannot see it. It has to be seen through something else. So when I see my eye, actually the camera is seeing my eye, and I'm seeing what the camera sees. Or the mirror sees my eye, and I'm seeing what the mirror sees. But I have never looked at my own eye. Everything comes from somebody else. Everything from somebody else. So when I look at myself, then what I is doing the looking. So that's what you have to keep reminding yourself. And the more you remind yourself of this, the more separated you can become from your ego, from your body, the more you become a cloud, the more you become free. And clouds can't get into conflict.
And it could be either I that's looking, or no, that's what you're saying. We can't see from the soul, so it's always a personality. As you said, remember which I is looking, which I is speaking.
Try again.
Because
I didn't hear.
Speaking you said now remember which I is looking, which I is speaking. Could it be any of the eyes? Could it be more of a spiritual centered I as opposed to more in the personality or more in the body? Or it's just always.
As long as you have any chance that you're actually being a spiritual part of you is doing anything, you'll never get anywhere. Okay? Because as I said, you are so, not you personally, but everybody, you're so far away from your spiritual side having any participation in your conscious life of thinking that you're just so far away from it. And you personally always like to think you're spiritual and your spiritual side and your soul and all of this. And as long as you keep believing that, then you'll never get there, because it's never that. It's always your ego.
But I thought, like at the beginning of the talk, you said, when we ask questions about what is our spirit and where do we come from, and there's spiritual questions.
Yes, but it's always coming from your ego personality. Always coming from your ego personality. It is never coming from the spark or the soul, because you're too far away from that.
Okay, so it's just recognizing that, like you said, habit, repetition until it becomes a permanent awareness that I am not crystal.
Yeah, you just keep asking, and realizing that it's always my ego, human ego personality that's asking. And so when anybody likes to do that, from my spiritual side, I ask from my spiritual side, or from my soul, or from my true self, and this, all of it is lies. So far away from there, it is not possible for a human being to actually be in touch with that, for a normal human being to do that. So that's just building your ego. And the more you have an ego thinking you're great, all based on self-lies, the more delicate you become and subject to fears and attacks.
So what is that state then, David, if you don't mind me asking? Like it's a similar state to what I get if I'm able to progress with a good meditation, luckily. And sometimes I have this during the day interacting with people. If I can, constantly remind myself, I'm not me, and, don't worry, and don't be attached. And when I can snap out of being self-centered and just being present, really, and connected, more connected with that other person without any ego personality distractions, that feels like a much more balanced state. Like,
okay, good.
I'm in control, as opposed to the ego is in control. What would that be then? Is that still, even feelings like that is still just the ego, Krista?
I don't know. I don't know your feelings. I don't know your experiences. If you're happy and content, that's good. If you're inner turmoil, it's bad. So that's the thing. If you're happy and content, it's good. If you feel inner turmoil, it's bad. So you know if it's right or wrong based on, do you feel good and content, or do you feel uncomfortable? So then you know, are you doing it right or wrong? Very simple. You have to gauge yourself. Right? Nobody can do your thinking for you. Nobody. You know, any emotion you describe, there's no way anyone else can know what you're feeling, because emotions can't be described in words. Feelings can't be described in words. The only thing another person can do when you're describing emotions and feelings is, in their imagination, try to form a picture of what they think you might be feeling. So that's why there's certain questions like this one you just asked, you have to decide based on how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because the ego is in pain and suffering. It's saying, I want to end my pain and suffering. I got to find a way. It tries what it can find. It's by the law of accidents, you found this course. So you take it. But yeah, I mean, it comes from pain and suffering, that you want to end your pain and suffering. That's a big ego. Yeah. No, it's the ego in pain wanting to end its pain. Right? Unless we said, taming your dragons, how to make a lot more money. And it's the ego wanting to make more money. Right? So either you want to pain, or you want to make more money, or whatever it is. We're going to make a new series, Dr. Love, how to have better relationships. You know, so then it's people who want to have better relationships. So yeah, so it's whatever you want, end your pain, get something, whatever it is. That's what drives you. But it's always from ego. Everything is from your ego personality or your body, because the one who comes to the course about how to have better relationships is generally from their body, because you're driven by sex. Unless they're 80 years old, then they just want a companion that they can get along with for the rest of their life, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just saying, because I'm assuming 80-year-olds don't come to pick up a young girl, right? Unless they're really strong 80-year-olds, right? I don't know. Sham would know about the old people, how good they are with that. You know, yeah. So, yeah, you're driven either by ego or body. You're never driven by spark. Always, it's all you are, ego and body. So, yes and no, yes and no. I mean, there's a desire to evolve. It's nature. Does a chicken desire to get out of the egg? No. but it does. So does the baby chick growing in the egg, does the baby in the womb really want to come out? No, it doesn't want to come out. Does it want to come out? Yes, it wants to come out. Does it want to, or is it just nature? Is it just natural process? So is it desire or is it natural process? So does the spark have any desires? No. Does the spark have desires? Yes, because it's natural process of evolution. So, you know, that's, some questions have all answers, but that's why you have to learn how to think of what's the cause of the cause of the cause. Okay. All right.